online for authors. I'm chatting with SA McLain, author of Blood on the Veld. Welcome, Sherry.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. I'm super excited. This has been a long time coming because you and I connected. I read the book. I was all ready to have you on the show, and then publishing companies changed. Things kind of changed, which we'll get to, but we're finally together, which is very exciting. Before we dive into the book, can you give people just kind of a quick idea of what they're going to find when they open up the cover of Blood on the Veld?
Well, okay. I call it a wildlife crime thriller. My readers tell me it's a lot more than that. I guess it's just the way my brain works. This kind of adventure, kind of mystery, kind of action thing, kind of thing. My protagonist is Christian Bekker, and he is a conservation programs director. And what that is they work with zoological societies, and they basically are running the programs, the conservation, a lot of zoos. I know a lot of, there's this whole controversy about zoos, whether they're good or bad, but they do a lot of conservation stuff. So he's working for this zoological society in London. His father dies. Now, he's originally from South Africa. So he got in trouble when he was 17, and he accidentally shot a guy who was a poacher. The guy died. Long story short, they ended up moving. They ended up leaving through the courts and so on. They ended up having to leave South Africa. So that's why he's in London. His dad passes away. He's going through his things. He finds some information that leads him to believe that maybe there was more to the trial, more to him killing this guy than he originally thought. And like all great protagonists, he's filled with guilt. He's broken. He's got a lot of problems. His wife's leaving him. She had an affair and she's divorced. All these things, right? So he's not in the best place. He decides to go back to South Africa, and then the rest of the book is he's trying to find answers. What happens? He gets in the middle of a big wildlife trafficking ring, and and there you have it.
And we go from there. So Mike, I have two questions. The first one is, why kind of this crime thriller, adventure, mystery kind of thing, and where in the world did this idea come from?
Okay, well, my first book was actually literary fiction.
Okay.
So it was, I called it a mevel because it was kind of semi-autobiographical, but it was dark, but dark in a different way. Mm-hmm. And I have always wanted, I've always loved thrillers, and I've always thought maybe, writers are filled with self-doubt, I was like, can I write a thriller? I don't know, maybe. I read a lot of how-to books along the way. From the very beginning, when I was first book, and thought, how do I even write? How do I do this? You said go to books, right? You said that's what writers do. They go to books, and I found this one how-to book, and then one of the chapters said how to find inspiration, and one of the suggestions was write a list of things you love, write a list of things you hate. Maybe there's something in there. And the first thing on the list of the things I hate is wildlife trafficking. So it's a really big deal to me. I've always just the idea that people for money and power can just wipe out a whole species just drives me crazy.
Right.
And I figured, writing a book takes forever. So I needed to do something that I cared a lot about. And that's what it was. That was just a thing I hated. And that's how it started.
Fantastic. I love that, because people often ask me, like, how did you come up with your stories? And sometimes it's just dumb little things. Like I heard a song lyric and it made me think, or my grandfather once told me something that just really stuck with me. And so those are the kinds of things. And so it was that kind of thing for you, where it was, well, what's something that really moves me in one way or another? Right.
Yeah. So I wanted to I'm both angry about it. I'm really, really upset about it, but I'm also I wanted to know more about it. I guess it was kind of a weird fascination as well. And then the more I did some initial research and realized, oh my God, there's so many people involved. There's so many things going on all over the world. There's all these animals that are just getting slaughtered everywhere. Right. And I've never even heard of them, Right. So I thought, well, for a writer, there's a lot of stuff I could work with. So
absolutely. So let's jump into the research for just a minute. I am a research junkie. I use that hashtag. It is something that it's one of the reasons I love writing, is that I get to marry two things that I love very much, which is the actual writing process and then all of that research that kind of gets my mind moving. So where did you find the information you were looking for?
Well, because I'm not a wildlife trafficking expert,
right?
And I'm not in law enforcement,
right?
So I had to, and I'm also writing about countries I'm not from. Right, so I had to figure this out. Authenticity is a big deal to me. Right. I want somebody from that country who's experienced those things to go, this is pretty accurate. I do. I know it's fiction. I completely get it. Totally made up stories. Completely get it. But I need there to be that authenticity. It's really, really important to me. So I traveled. I spent 2 weeks in a game reserve in South Africa and doing manual labor. So, by myself, I went out there and and it was one of the most amazing experiences I've ever experienced. The sights and the sounds and the animals and the people. I love the people. I'm dying to go back to South Africa. At some point, I'm going to have to. There's a million other places to go before, but
it's on the redo list, right?
It's on the redo list. I also, once I started doing character development, I started, obviously saying, okay, I need this kind of person. I need a guy who's an expert in he's a detective or something in wildlife trafficking. I found a guy. So I found a guy, talked to him on, I think it was Skype at the time. I don't think we do that anymore, but, and then, email back and forth. He answered a bunch of questions. So that helped me a lot. And that, created Ruben's character. So my police detective, my guy that, specializes in wildlife trafficking. So he was very integral to that. I talked to Dr. Jonathan Bailey, he's now way beyond that. He's founded his own stuff and everything, but he was working at the Zoological Society of London as a conservation programs director. Okay. So he gave me, it's like, what are the challenges? What do you do? How do you do it? What does a day look like? All those things. So, and of course, I read a million books, watched a million videos, articles, everything I could, find, So that's basically how I do it. I talked to a wildlife vet. Initially, he was helpful initially, and then he got annoyed with me. I'm not a pushy person, but somehow I annoyed him. So that didn't work out well. So it's not always perfect.
Right. If you're like me, though, it's that you've got questions and that his answers probably gave you more questions. And so then you had more, and then he answered those and you then had more. And he was like, okay, I'm kind of done now.
Well, to be honest with you, I think the biggest problem with him was that he was, some people have it. It's like people have a problem, with zoos. Okay. Yeah. So he lived in Africa, different parts of Africa and South Africa and all that for his whole life. Grew up there, was a vet and everything, but he dealt with the wild. Okay. So, which isn't, to be honest with you, it's not hugely far away from game reserves. They're massive, but but there is a control there. Right. So it is, but I think once he realized a lot of my setting was in game reserves and not just out in the wild, I think he got a little annoyed with me.
I see.
So he didn't really like,
he was like, well, what you were talking about. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that definitely happens too. I love your idea of wanting to be as truthful as possible.
As I can,
despite the fact that it's a fiction book. And
right.
I'm the same way. I write a lot of historical fiction, where the history section to me has to be as true to life as I can make it. My characters who are fiction can kind of do their own thing within the realm of what's possible in that time period. And so I agree with you that doing that research, do you find that you have way more research than what you actually put into the book?
Oh, come on. This much research for this much information. Of course. Yeah. Oh, my God. You should see my Scrivener. My Scrivener, it's for those of you, it's a place where writers can they either write on it or they add research where I don't write on it. I actually use good old Word because the way I do it, I prefer to do it that way. But I use all my character development in Scrivener. So you would not believe how much I have in there. It's scary. I mean, the amount I just think, oh my God, all that time spent doing all this.
But what works when you do that is the ability to then pull out the tidbits that you know will work and that will give the reader the feeling that they're there without having to have them read 7,000 books in order to do that. So
exactly.
Absolutely. So who was your favorite character to write in all of this?
You know, it's funny. I think, and I bet you, you're gonna. Well, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I bet you it's not always. I bet you writers don't always think it's the protagonist. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm, I've got a tortured guy, and I'm giving him hugs, and he's gonna take me through the series, and he's gonna transform all those things. But it's not for this book. I think it's either got to be Reuben or Annalee. So Annalee she grew up. So there were some kids that grew up together. So when he comes back, he like all small towns. I mean, I grew up in Tecumseh, Michigan, tiny little town. If I went back there today, I guarantee in no time I would run into people. I guarantee it. Right. So it was a small area. He comes back, and Reuben was his best friend growing up, and Annalee was his girlfriend. Well, he doesn't actually, it's not as simple as that. But Annalee is a special forces. She went off and joined the military. She's through a series of then now she's ex-military, and now she's working for a company that works with the parks and things like that. Right. But she's I don't know if I'm allowed to swear. Am I allowed to swear?
Sure.
Okay. She's badass. She's real bad. And I had to do, and again, I had to do a lot of, my husband, thankfully, is big in Krav Maga. So he was able to help me with the choreography and so on. And I have friends who are have a big interest in guns. So that helped me a lot. That she's, I like her because I just like to play with all that because it's something that I found very challenging. Reuben, I just liked him. I created a guy who's very, kind of took everything as it was. He's smart, but he's really easygoing, and he's really, he's funny. And he and Christian have a good relationship. So I guess between those, it's those two really.
Yeah. I agree with you that a lot of times, especially if you have a lot of secondary characters, that sometimes those secondary characters really, I don't know, they really play off on your protagonist in such a way that you kind of want almost in some way to make them shine even a little more because you grow to like them. I actually had a character that I didn't even think was going to be secondary as much as just barely mentioned, who became a main character because they refused to go away. So I think writing, they kept coming out, and it was like, okay, I guess you're here,
I didn't have, so Annalee, you'd have to read the book to see it, but I thought in my head, her role was much smaller. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I just thought, oh, well, she's going to do this. And she adds, because I am very much a plotter, very much. Okay. I have a really good idea of what this book's going to look like. But I don't do it all. So I have, maybe 30% of it I know, scene by scene by scene by, and I've got kind of the general out in that way. But then as I start then it's like driving at night on a country road, right? When you don't know the road, right? So your lights see so far, but then you have to turn to be able to see further. Well, it's kind of like that. So I know so far, and then I get there, and then I can see further on. And then I started realizing that she had more to say. She had more to do than I thought initially.
Right, and I think characters can do that. I love that ability as an author to allow that creativity to kind of happen, what I call on the fly, where you're writing and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, there it is. Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize that was going to be. I am very much a pantser. So you say you're very much a plotter, and it's like, I have tried so hard, and the me that plots and the me that writes don't talk to one another, and I don't even think they really like one another very much. So I have to kick the me that you're speaking to out so that the writer can write, and it's a very crazy thing. And so plotting doesn't work for me, and I've been told it would make my life easier, and I suspect it would if I could figure out a method that would work for me, but I've yet to find one. It is painful to watch. So I'm a little curious about this, like 30% idea. Like, what does that mean? Like, 30% of the book?
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't, obviously nobody knows exactly how long the book's going to be, right?
Exactly.
Nobody actually knows, but you have kind of an idea. I like my multiple viewpoint, multiple plot line, that. So it's not going to be an 80,000 word book. That's just not going to happen because we're not going to be able to develop it properly. So I kind of think, this one was about 130,000 words at the end, around. I'm thinking, around the 120,000. I don't want it to be too much longer than that, and I know I can't probably do too much shorter. So that's just kind of how I kind of view the world. Character development for me is key to plotting, because the more I know about their backgrounds, and I like to also do secrets. I don't know if you do this, but I try to look at every character, and I think, and I've done all this various backgrounds, flaws, whatever. What are they doing now? What do I want? What do they want? What do they, And then I think, what is their secret? I know family, enemies that, you know what I mean? You do the whole thing. What is their secret? And I try to give every single character a secret. Now, I don't use it, because if I did that, because of all the characters I'd have, that'd be a 500,000 word book. Right.
And you wouldn't be able to do anything with
I wouldn't be able to. But I have a lot of those, the good ones, the ones that because, and also writers don't always have great ideas, do we? Occasionally we have a great idea, and then we have not so great idea, right? And then we go, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea. But I did use a few of those secrets and incorporated them into the book. So anyway, so you have this, and that helps. That helps the plot line, right?
Right.
So there's subplot. If I know the secret and then I incorporate it, and then I have to tie it all into the through line, right at the end, and all gets tied in.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think, like I said, when I listen to people who plot, they make it sound so much like I want to try. And I have tried. I have used many different books, many different methods. I feel like my characters stand over on the sideline and say, you let us know when you're done with that stupid little experiment. We'll get back to writing. I don't know. It's a really crazy thing. So I'm always really in awe of people who have that ability to sit and do that, because my editing process is tremendous. Because I've just been writing by the seat of my pants, and I get to the end and it's like, wow, I got a lot of work to do to tie all that together.
It's funny, because I'm terrified by that idea. Absolutely. I'm terrified to spend all that time. And I'm not a fast writer. I know there are people who can knock out thousands of words a day. I can't do that. I cannot do that. I'm because I'm rewriting as I'm writing. I go back every day. I rewrite what I wrote the day before, and then I go back and then I try to go further. Some days, if it's a chase scene, I'm screwed because it takes me forever, because I have to know exactly where they're going in reality, and figure this out by satellites and everything else, you know, to figure out exactly. And I have a scene, a chase scene with a car. I went and looked at all the maps, all the roads, figured out exactly where they were going and turning, and this like wrote this whole huge thing, and then condensed it down, of course, because you don't want to get bored, right?
Right.
So, you know, I just, the idea that I would just go off and right away, here I am, thousands of words, and then at the end of it go, oh my God, what is this?
Right. So I'm curious, when you get to the end of your first draft, you are finally done with your first draft.
Yep.
Can you show it to anyone? Because see, like I would never show my first draft to anyone.
Well, I could, but I probably wouldn't. So what I would do at the end of the first draft, I always overwrite. So I think I always overwrite. So, because I like short chapters and tight writing. I like the beauty, the elegance of really tightly written, you know, prose. For lack of a better. So I always seem to like my descriptions go on too much, my dialogue's too loose, my blah blah blah.
So you come back and tighten that.
And I come back, yeah. So and like I said, every morning I spend an hour and a half rewriting the previous stuff, so that helps.
Right.
But by the time I give it to the editor, I go through it a couple more times and tighten, and then I give it to them. And then after I get all their they hate this, they hate that back, then I tighten it some more, you know.
Right.
But yes, but technically, yes, I could.
Okay. So my first draft, I call it word vomit. And that's exactly what it is. It's not something that I would ever show to anyone. And I go through and I take copious notes and do lots and lots of fixing and so it's just, we have just a very different, and I don't wordsmith. As I'm going through, I write what comes to my head. I write it down. I move on. I very rarely go back. The only time that I've ever gone back is with the book that I've just written, Peg Unhinged. And it's because she had a humorous voice. And I found if I went too long, I would lose her voice. And so I would always read again to make sure that I hadn't lost the humor. She has kind of a sarcastic, a little bit of dark humor. And you need to make sure you haven't lost it along the way. And so I did stop and make sure that I hadn't lost it. But generally speaking, I just kind of word vomit it. And then I go back and say, okay, what is this mess that I've created here? And can I turn it into a book? And so we have such different processes. I think it would be really funny for you to try mine and me to try yours. What happened?
Do you have any idea what you're writing, though? I mean, do you have any idea? I mean, you've got to.
I have a character. Usually I have a character who kind of gets born in my head and says, I have a story. And
so you've got Peg. You've got Peg.
So I have Peg, and I knew she was going through menopause, and I knew her life was a mess.
Okay.
That's what I knew.
Okay.
And then I just started writing, and there was Peg with a messy life, and it was funny, and I just kept writing, and then I would say, okay, well, she's got to do something. I can't just have her be a mess. What am I going to have her? What am I going to have her do? And it was like, I don't know. She could do this, or and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that sounds good. And then I don't know. It's just a very organic. My previous book, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, it's about 82,000 words. I was 60,000 words in and still had no idea how it was going to end.
Okay. Do you write in acts at all? Do you know where your first act ends and your second act begins and any of that? You don't care about any of that. Wow.
I just write. Wow. And then I go back and I say, okay, it's too slow here. It took too long to get to something. Can I bring any of this forward? Do I need a flash forward? Do I need a flashback? Maybe I just need another scene? So I think my first draft, though a lot of words, is like a glorified outline. And then I go back and I say, rearrange. I like this. This needs more. Don't need that at all. And then that second draft, it's like, okay, now it's looking more like a novel.
You know what they say, everybody has their way. You can't tell one writer how, do it this way or
No,
do
I
it
agree.
that way or whatever. I mean, I think every single person is different. I don't think I'm a pure plotter because it's not like a Borg, because I don't know exactly from start to finish this end, this scene, but I kind of have, 20 or 30 scenes. I've got a good idea. I write scene cards. I have sheets of butcher paper on my wall, and I put the scene cards and I color code them to figure out, to see how many, scenes are with Christian versus my other viewpoint characters. So it kind of gives me a feel for, if there's too much him, too much somebody else, whatever. I do that. I do definitely. I love the whole signpost thing. I'm a big fan of people who've written about the different signposts you need to kind of make sure that you've got everything a reader needs to be entertained, So I like that. So I put those in. And, in my various acts, I have a doorway. After the first act, something's got to happen, or they can't go back. So what do I got to do? What does he got to do? What has to happen to make sure that he doesn't say, "Yeah, I'm not really interested. This is too much for me. I'm going to do something else."
Right. No, I think it's wonderful, and I love talking with people who have a very different method from me, because I think that you can learn from other people, even if you don't use everything. Like, even if I did nothing except maybe went and looked up these signposts and then started saying, that's it doesn't really make me plot, but it does give me like a general path that I can kind of meander down, those kinds of things. I think those kinds of things can be very helpful, even to a pantser like me.
There's a guy, I don't know if you, what's his name? Of course, I'm not going to, James Scott Bell.
Okay.
Have you heard of him?
No.
He's done a few, he's done a few how-to, but he's got one called Superstructure, and it's small. Okay. It's not very big, but it kind of goes through the signposts, his idea. Because there's a few people that have different ideas, But I really like that book because it's small. It's got boom, boom, boom. It says plotters, look at this. Pantsers do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He goes back and forth.
So what I love about that immediately is that it doesn't say pantsers, you're wrong.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So many plotter books say if you're a pantser, you're doing it wrong. And
no,
it's like, no, I think it kind of depends on just the way your brain,
the way your brain's wired and what works for you. You cannot have everybody do the same thing. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I agree.
No.
Let's talk real briefly about this change of publishing. Because you had the book out, you had a cover, I read it.
I did a website. All of a
sudden you're now with Black Rose Writing.
Yeah.
How did that come up? Did you approach them? Did they approach you?
All right. So I think it's good to know your weaknesses.
Right.
One of my weaknesses is that I'm so fascinated by everything that it's obviously I had enough discipline to write 2 books, obviously, right? Yeah. But it was hard to stay focused without anybody saying anything to me, without anybody expecting anything from me, to you know what I mean? Some days I'd rather watch a movie than sit down and write a hard scene that I've been dreading writing, right? We've all been there. I think part of it's because I spent a lot of time in the corporate world. So from out of grad school, I went, I started working for these big companies. I worked for the LA Times. I worked for, and then when I came to the UK, because we all have those things of, I really need a real job. This is, I write books and it's cool and I'm kind of good at it, but I have to pay bills. So then I got my financial degrees, like a qualifications here. Yeah. So to be a financial planner, basically. Anyway, so all those things, I like working with teams. So everybody, all of this experience, and I'm comfortable, deadlines and people expecting things from me. It's good for me. All right. So I decided to be an indie writer because I didn't like the way the big, large traditional publishers were doing things. I'm sure you understand, because I don't need to tell you.
Right.
I don't need to tell you. As you know, they're almost like this evil overlord thing where they hardly pay anything.
I feel like they're an emotionally abusive spouse, is what. So you know.
Yeah. So I didn't take all that lightly. I mean, I looked at it as we're all research,
right?
Addicts, right? So I did lots and lots of research on that and came to the conclusion that I just didn't think that was going to work. I'm a free spirit. I don't want anybody to just squish me like a bug or say, oh, we like the book, but our readers want this. So you need to change all of this stuff because, or else we don't want you and blah, blah, all these things. I didn't want to go. I wanted to work hard. I was going to hire all the people, the editor and another editor and another editor. It's not that I'm afraid of criticism at all, but, and hire a cover designer, hire this, hire that. But I didn't, but it was all about me. It was all me by myself in a room.
Right.
So the Blood on the Veld came out. People really liked it. I still struggle with social media. I'm not any different from a lot of writers. I think that we much rather would be writing books than marketing. I'm learning. I'm trying to make myself happier about all this. So I was doing it, but not really well enough. And certain marketing stuff I wasted a lot of time doing. It didn't come to anything. It was the wrong thing to do, whatever. So I was kind of trudging along, and it was a strange. I came across a book, and it was doing very well, and I was curious about it, and I looked at it, and then I saw the publisher was Black Rose Writing, basically, and I thought, and I looked at when Gary had the book was out. It was out longer than mine, but not a huge amount longer, and it was just thousands of reviews, was marketed everywhere, and I'm thinking, I need someone to try to kick me in the backside to try to do this, or to help me, or both, right?
Right.
So I went to their website, and they said, and they said, we're actually taking submissions. We only accept 1% or some stupid amount, right? And I just wrote to the publisher, and I just said, I saw this book. I see all this stuff that's happening, and I could use a bit, someone to kind of kick me in the backside and direct me a bit. This is what my book's about. And I wrote this other book, and I won some awards and whatever.
Right.
And then Reagan wrote back to me directly and said, send me your manuscript. And I said, okay. And we were, Gareth and I were in France, my favorite place. I'm always working on my French. That's why I'm always going to France to practice my français, right? So we were sitting there, and I started seeing emails, and he's like, blah, blah, this, that, and next thing I knew, he sent me a contract. And I said, well, and they are a traditional publisher, right, but they're smaller,
right?
Based in Texas, near Austin area.
Well, fantastic. And I was really excited for you when you reached out and said to me, hey, let's put this on pause.
Yeah, because all of a sudden my world went mental, because all of a sudden they said,
I'm going to have it come out, but it's going to have a different cover, and it's going to be with a different publisher. And are you willing to wait for me? And it was like, yeah, absolutely.
I thought you were going to say no, and I was like, what are you doing?
No. I love working with authors, and when you have something that really works for you come up, I definitely wanted to do everything I can to help. So do you have anything coming up? Do you have something next, or has this whole transfer been so much that you haven't really been doing much in the way of writing?
No, I am about 30% into the next book. I went to Tokyo, and spent the coldest winter of my life in March in Tokyo. Okay. Unbelievable. So this is one of the, it's all these things, all these little things that I get out of going places, because yeah, I can look at images. I can read, the average temperature in March in Tokyo was
right.
until you experience it. I thought I was going to die. It was blizzard conditions. I got a really bad cold. I know that's not related to weather exactly, but oh my goodness gracious, I was miserable. But so the book 2 is set in Tokyo.
Fantastic. That's exciting. Well, Sherry, if someone wanted to reach out to you, talk with you about the books that you've written, talk with you about your publishing experiences, those kinds of things, what's the best way to find you and reach you?
Well, they can always email me. I mean, that's Sherry, SHERRI, at samclain.com.
Okay.
I had a newsletter, but now with the new publisher, I'm going to go on Substack, and I'm hoping to sort all this out next week. I had to get the website sorted. Now I've got to get the newsletter up and running again. But if they want to just hear about what I'm doing in general, then they can sign up to the newsletter. But if they have any questions, I'm happy to. I love to hear from readers. I love it.
I feel the same way. And guys, I'll have all of her links in the show notes, so you'll be able to reach right out to her. And Sherry, I want to thank you so much for being here today. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been so nice. It's like chatting, having a little wine and chatting.
Absolutely. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.